Alright, the first palettes I'm going to start out with are my Tarte palettes. So I have 3 palettes from Tarte. The first palette I have is the original Tartelette. So this is an all matte palette, pure neutrals. It's beautiful, blends wonderfully. I'm holding on to this one. The next Tarte palette I have is the Tartelette in Bloom. So again, all neutrals, but there are some shimmers in here. I don't reach for this. I have others that I like more. However, it performs beautifully. I'm going to pass this one along to a friend. All right, and my third Tarte palette is the Tartist Pro. So it's mostly neutrals. You have 4 shimmers. Some of these are really pretty, like duochrome shades. I mean, that's really beautiful. This one as well. Pretty shades, but just not something I reach for, so another one that I will declutter. Next up are my Persona palettes. I have the 2 Identity palettes. So the original Identity, so this is a neutral palette, but it's beautiful. It has some warmer tones, some cool tones, goes really deep. The shimmers are nice. I'm holding on to this one. Then I have the Identity 2. Now this one, I like a few of the shimmers in different colors, but I just don't reach for this. I think it performs beautifully. I don't think the shimmers are that shimmery. It's okay, I'm passing it along to a friend. I have this palette from Lancome. I believe it was a holiday palette last year. There are some beautiful shimmers in here. I need to put this on my desk so that I get some use out of it because it really is pretty. Like this green, multi-chrome, these other shimmers, they really are beautiful. I'm going to hold on to this one. From Revolution, I have the Soph X palette. It's nice, it's fine, performs fine, but I do not reach for it. I'm going to pass this along. I have one Makeup Obsession palette from Target. I didn't really enjoy the looks that I got out of this. I mean, it's decent, but I'm passing this one along. I have one NYX palette. It's the I Love You So Mochi. Now these are actually really pretty shades. Some really pretty kind of topper shades. Let's see if I have room on my hand. I mean, they are really pretty. I just have other ones that I reach for more. Probably, you know, in Colourpop or other palettes. It is pretty, but I just don't reach for it. I'm passing this along. I have this palette from Becca. I got this at TJ Maxx. Some of these shimmers are actually really pretty. They kind of make me think of the Pat McGrath special shades with how nice they reflect. Kind of a drier texture, but they look really nice. I'm gonna keep this. I have this one from Dominique Cosmetics. It came, I think, with a couple lip products. Pretty shades, all matte. I just don't reach for it. I'm passing this along. My one from Smashbox. This is the Hood Witch Crystallized. Some really pretty shades. You can go pretty neutral, cooler tone. It's nice, but I just have others that I reach for. I am passing this along. Right, from Butter London, this was, I think, in a Boxycharm. Some pretty shades, but not something that I'm reaching for. I have 2 from Laura Mercier. This one, some really pretty shades actually, but just, again, not, let's see, not something that I really am using. So I'm passing this along. And also from Laura Mercier, this is the Hidden Gems. Again, some really pretty tones. Oh, I haven't seen this shade. Kind of a topper. Very pretty, not something I've reached for. You know, I'm actually gonna hold on to this. I'm gonna put it on my desk and see if I can get some use out of it. All right, my one Profusion palette, which just looks really sad. I really like green shadows, so I picked this up and it shattered. So I'm going to offer this to a friend, but most likely we'll just toss it. All right, this is my one palette from Winky Lux. It is, I think, Mermaid Kitten, some really pretty shades. I haven't had a chance to play around with this one as much as I would like to, so I'm gonna hold on to this. All right, another one from a Boxycharm. This is the Hank and Henry Living in Color. Really no desire to use this. I'm sure it performs fine. I haven't even swatched it. I'm passing this along to a friend. This is the Ace Beaut Scarlet Dusk. I believe I got this in a Boxycharm. I don't really do these tones. I mean, there's some pretty mauves in here, some pretty kind of peachy tones, but I don't really like it. I have a friend who these shades would be beautiful on, so I will be passing it along. All right, from Revolution, I have 3 palettes. I have the Heartbreakers in Lucky. This one was my bottom ranked of my palettes that I tried in 2020. I do like this shimmer, but otherwise, I'm decluttering that one. I have the Mini Avocado. Now this one kind of reminds me of the Profusion one. I'm going to hold on to this one and get some use out of it. And the last one is the Mini Peach. And some really pretty tones. I like the corals in this one and some pretty gold, so I'm going to hold on to this one. I have 2 from Violet Voss. I have the I Do Not Care, and it's pretty. I mean, this little white, kind of sparkly, it has a couple different shimmers in there. I'm gonna hold on to this one and see if I can get some use in the springtime. And the other one from Violet Voss, this is the Flamingo eyeshadow palette. Some really pretty shades in here. I'm excited to get some use out of this one in the spring and summertime. From Fenty, I have 4 of the Snap Shadows. Now I know that these didn't get a lot of love, but I actually kind of enjoy them. So I think this is Cadet. It's really pretty, really grungy. And then number 6, I think this is the smoky one. And then I have number 2, which is the Cool Neutrals, some really pretty taupey shades in there, and then I think the Peach palette. So these I want to hold on to. These are ones that I plan to go traveling with once we're able to travel. I have 2 palettes from the Balm. I have the Meet Matrimony, so this is an all matte palette. I really like this. It performs beautifully. The colors blend together. I just don't reach for it. I'm going to pass this along. And the other Balm palette that I have is foiled again. So this one has a row of mattes and then 2 rows of super foiled shimmers. I love this kind of purple shade and these pinks. So they're actually really pretty, really foiled shimmers. I'm holding on to this one. Morphe. So I have the mini version of the James Charles palette. I don't think this performs that great. However, it has kind of every shade you can think of for a rainbow palette, so for that reason I'm holding on to it, just in case I want to do a fun, colorful look. I know that I can reach in here. Alright, also from Morphe, this is the 35M. So this one I got for these green tones, and they're actually really nice. Even some of these kind of reddish orange shades, but mostly just the green tones. I'm holding on to this just for those. Alright, I also have the Morphe 35C, the Everyday Chic. This one was near the bottom of my 2020 rankings. It's a really pretty color story, but I don't reach for it. If I'm looking for greens, I have somewhere else to reach. If I'm looking for purples, I go somewhere else. If I'm looking for neutrals, I go somewhere else. I'm going to put this on my desk just to see if I get a little more use out of it, and if not, then I will declutter it. Alright, the Morphe 35i Ice Fantasy. This one was also near the bottom of my rankings. I think I'm going to hold on to it just to see if I get some use out of it in the springtime, if I'm dipping into the pastels. Most likely I'll grab for my Colourpop pastels and not this, but I'll hold on to it just through the spring, and if I'm not using it, I will declutter. And the last Morphe palette I have is the 35H. And this one has some really pretty warm tones, some pretty teals, couple neutrals, and this one, it's pretty, but I am not going to be using it. I'm not going to dip into this. I'm going to pass this along to a friend. Next up, I have 2 Urban Decay palettes. I have the Moondust. I got this on major discount at TJ Maxx, and it is pretty beautiful. I like the shimmers. They perform well. They look nice on the eye. My favorite thing to do is put one on the lid and smoke it out with a black shadow. I'm holding on to this. And the other Urban Decay palette I have is the Naked Honey. This is one that when it initially launched, I thought it was really boring looking. I saw it in store and I swatched it and I had to have it. Just these kind of honey tone neutrals are beautiful. They don't go as deep as I would like. I like all the shimmers. Everything blends beautifully. I typically will do an all matte look with this and I love how it turns out every time. I have two palettes from Stellazi. I have the Darkroom palette and it's okay. It performs fine. The shimmers are really lackluster. Not much else to say about it. It's fine. I'm gonna pass it along though. All right, and then I have the Stellazi Spellbound. This one I like a little more because it goes a little deeper, but the shades that I would reach into, like the green tones, I have tones like that. I even have, I think this is kind of a duochrome. I have shades like that, but better. So I'm gonna pass this one along as well. I have 4 palettes from BH. I have the Romantic Nomad. This was kind of near the bottom of my 2020 palette rankings. It's fine, nothing special. I'm passing this one along. The Blueberry Muffin was near the very top of my 2020 rankings. I love this palette. It is beautiful. The blues perform beautifully. The shimmers are amazing. I absolutely love this palette. In that same vein, I have the Avocado Toast palette. Another one that I just really enjoy using this palette. There's some really unique shades of green. The shimmers are beautiful. There's some nice neutrals, so you can go a lot of different directions with this. And the last BH palette that I have, this was a nice surprise one. It's very bright, but you can go very light and neutral. But I enjoy dipping into the colors. The reds and oranges are beautiful. The shimmers perform really nice. This is a great palette. All right, next up are my Too Faced palettes. I have 4 Too Faced palettes. First up, one of the older ones, I have the Chocolate Bar. I mean, this is still a staple. It still performs well. I more use it for those neutral mattes. The shimmers are okay, but it's still a nice palette. I have, in that same size, I have the Extra Spicy Gingerbread. I really like this. When I want a really warm neutral look, I will pop into this one and it performs great. It's a beautiful palette. All right, this was one of my most used in 2020, an unexpected favorite for me. I found it at TJ Maxx on sale and it's beautiful. It performs really nicely. I love this champagne shade on the end. There's a multi-chrome kind of green brown reddish shade. The mattes blend nice. This is a great palette. All right, the other kind of tutti frutti Too Faced one I have is the raspberry one, and I don't really like this. Every look that I make looks kind of the same. It performs fine. I just don't love the shades on me. I'm going to pass this along to a friend that I know it would look a lot better on. All right. I have 4 Lorac palettes. I have this little Diamond and Pearls, and it looks like it's a hot mess. It's cute, great for holidays. I really like this black shade. I'm not gonna swatch it because it's going to be on me for a few days, but it's pretty. I'm gonna hold on to this to see, maybe next year we'll get to go somewhere for the holidays and make something pretty. All right, the first unzipped I have is the Unfiltered. I forgot that I had this. It's pretty, it's fine. I'm gonna pass it along. All right, I also have the Unzipped Elegance. This one I really like. It's a little more cool toned. These shimmers are really pretty. So, but you know what? Actually, I think I have those shades in other things. I'm gonna pass this along. All right, my 2 Lorac Pros. I'm gonna be holding on to both of these. I already know. This one is the, what number? Number 2. So this one's a little more cool toned. The mattes are beautiful. The shimmers are a little more subtle, but sometimes that's nice for, you know, wearing to work or things that you don't want to sparkle too much, but it works really nice. I like it. And my last Lorac palette, this is the number 3. And this one is just a much more neutral one, very soft, good for like bridal makeup. This is beautiful. I'm holding on to it. I have 3 Viseart palettes. This one, the Paris Edit, made it into my favorites for 2020. It is just a beautiful color story. The mattes blend nice. There is one matte with shimmer that I don't like, but the actual shimmers perform nice. I'm going to hold on to this one. Next up, I have the Warm Edit. And this one is really nice if you like warm tones. I really like this top row with kind of the mustards and the gold, this champagne shade. The warmer tones, it's really pretty. These, again, kind of like the Fenty, just really nice for travel. This fits in the palm of your hand. They're very small, so I'm gonna be holding on to that. And my favorite of the 3 is the Dark Edit. So this one, I just love the tones. It's a little grungier. These shimmers are really pretty. That green, that purple especially. I mean, they're just really nice quality. Oh, and they are magnetic, so they do pop out, but they pop right back in. It's a nice palette. I have 2 Nabla palettes. I have the Dreamy 2. This one, I saw the color story and I just loved it. Some of these shimmers just look so pretty. And they're great, they're beautiful, but I find every single look I do kind of looks the same, kind of a purpley reddish look. I'm gonna pass this one on. All right, this is the Nabla Cutie palette in Wildberry. This one was near the top of my ranking for my 2020 palettes. I love this. I love the shimmers in here, this Alchemy 2 shade. Where can I swatch? These are really pretty. I like the depth you can get with this Blackberry shade. I really want to try some of the other Nabla Cutie palettes, but I really enjoy this one. I have 3 Lime Crime palettes. I have the Venus Immortalis. So this is a beautiful cool tone palette. I've heard some people have trouble with this. I find if I just go in lightly, things blend out beautifully. I like the cooler tones, and this is really nice. I have the Venus 3. This one is a little more kind of purpley pink. I don't reach for this and I don't know that I will, but I have a friend who I think these shades would be beautiful on, so I'm passing this one along. My favorite of the 3 is the Prelude Chroma. This one, I just love the color story. I love the shimmers. I love this deep teal. I love this deep kind of plummy purple. It's just a beautiful palette. I have 3 palettes from Kaleidos. I'm waiting on 2. My sister for Christmas got me the Lunar Lavender and the Sashimi City. So I'm waiting on those 2. I love the Kaleidos palettes. This is the Sci-Fi Bronze, Cyber Bronze. This is probably the one I reach for least. I do really like these mattes. These shimmers are beautiful. I have a hard time pairing the silver with those. But these are just really, that silver is beautiful. I'd compare it with anything else. Yeah. Sci-Fi Green, another beautiful one. This kind of reminds me of just a smaller version of the Melt Gemini, which I'll show later. But it's beautiful. This is one of the best blacks that I have in my collection. I love the grungy greens, I love the mustard tones, and the shimmers are really pretty. My favorite of the 3 that I have is the Astro Pink. So this one, I just think it's super unique. Some really pretty, just simple neutrals. This pink shimmer, this blue duochrome. They are just really special shades. I don't love the black with the sparkle in it, but I like everything else. This deep pink is beautiful. This is just a great palette. From Huda Beauty, I have a whole bunch. I really enjoy Huda's shadows. First I have the Purple Haze. This one came out this year. It ranked kind of near the bottom of my 2020 palettes just because I have a hard time getting a variety of looks with only one kind of mid-tone deeper shade. I do love the shimmers in here. I'm going to hold on to it to see if I can kind of pair those with other palettes and get more use. Alright, I have the 3 neon palettes. I have the neon green, which there's really only like 3 neon greens. And then this white has kind of some green shimmer to it. But it is really pretty. I have the orange. This is my favorite of the 3. And then I have the pink, which actually has some really pretty kind of neon purples. I like these. I want to try to get some good use out of them in the summertime, but I think they're really pretty. I have two of the Nude Obsessions palette. I have the Nude Light, which is very light. The deepest shade is kind of a mid-tone brown, but the shimmers are really beautiful. This purple is really pretty, and then these kind of mauve-y tones. They just look really nice on the eye. So I'm holding on to that. Then I have the Nude Medium. This one I use quite a bit. Again, these shimmers are beautiful. The mattes are great too, but these shimmers especially. And I have three of the big palettes from Huda. I have the New Nude. I put this on a friend for her wedding this year, and it just looked beautiful on her. These kind of marbly shimmers that have like little flecks of things, they are beautiful. They're more toppers, but they look beautiful on the eyes. I don't like the pressed glitters, and this concealer shade is just a waste, but it is a beautiful palette. Alright, probably my favorite Huda palette is the Mercury Retrograde. I have gotten a lot of use out of this one. I will often just stick to kind of this section here and just go pretty mauve neutral. I feel like most of her shadows pull a little mauve-y pink, but this shade right here is super special. This shade is beautiful. But yeah, that kind of purpley, bluish, silver, it just looks amazing on the eye. I love this palette. And my newest Huda palette is the Naughty Nude. This one I almost didn't pick up, but then I saw a few reviews come in on it, and it is just beautiful. I love these super deep burgundy shades. The shimmers are all beautiful. This kind of marbled duochrome is beautiful. This slippery shade is stupid, but everything else I like. All right, next up are my Juvia's Place palettes. I have quite a few of these. First up I have the Zulu. This is really pretty. I like the shades, but I don't really reach for it. However, if I'm doing like a rainbow look, I will dip into my Juvia's Place palettes just to grab specific shades, so I'm gonna hold on to this. Next up I have the Festival, kind of same story as the last one. It's not a lot of shades that I necessarily grab often, but I hold on to it, especially for this red and that orange if I'm doing something bright. This white is really pretty. One of the best white shimmers that I have in my collection, so I'm gonna hold on to this. All right, I have the Magic Mini, so this is kind of a half neutral, half colorful palette. I do enjoy the shimmers in here. I don't really love the mattes. The only two deep mattes are like this deep kind of purpley blue and then a navy. But I am gonna hold on to it. I love this green shimmer, I love this blue shimmer, and this purple. These are all super pretty, super pigmented, and very unique to my collection. All right, next up is the Nubian 3 Coral. This one, I just don't get it. Like, I don't get it. I don't get how the silvers go with the browns and go with the corals. I can't seem to create a look that I like. Even just sticking in the neutrals, going monochromatic, I can't make it work. I'm gonna pass this along. This is the Warrior 2. This is an all matte neutral palette, so you kind of have a row of true neutrals, a row of warms, and a row of cools. I love this. It performs beautifully. Everything blends together really nicely. I can go all matte, or I can throw a shimmer on top of it from another palette, but this is kind of a staple. All right, the Nomad, this made it into my top products that I used in 2020. I reach for this pretty often, especially in the fall. Kind of a grungy play on neutrals. I really like these tones. I like the greens. The shimmers are really nice. You can go very deep. This is a great palette. And even though I don't reach for this one quite as much, the Tribe is probably my favorite color story wise. I enjoy every look that I create with this. I will sometimes kind of play around with these deep kind of tealy blues with the greens and the yellow, or just go warm orange. You can go pretty neutral. It's just such a unique color story. I don't think it's available anymore, but if you can find it, this one is fantastic. And another one that I really enjoy is, I think it's the Deuce. and just very pretty. I've done a few just soft pink looks with this. This pink shimmer is beautiful, this white and this green. If I have room, I'll go here. But these are just really pretty tones, especially for springtime, so I'm gonna hold on to that. You have the Tarte Beauty Textured Neutrals Volume 1. This is a really nice palette. I got this from my sister for Christmas last year, and it performs really beautifully. I really like the matte row. The shimmers are kind of a more subtle shimmer, but I really like the glitters, and I'm not a big glitter person, but these glitters are really nice. I just really enjoy this palette. I have one Marc Jacobs palette. This is the Stiletto. So just a very nice, cool toned, neutral palette. It performs beautifully. These shimmers are really nice. The mattes perform really nice. But this shade especially is just beautiful. I have 4 palettes from Shroud, formerly Strobe. So I have the Divinity palette. This is really nice. I pull from this quite often, especially for this bottom row. And it's just a really nice palette. I like this yellow, and this is a really nice kind of subtle shimmer. Then I have the Creepy Cute palette, which is an all matte kind of pastel, but you have a really cool gray, a really nice black, and you know, seeing this, maybe I can get rid of my Morphe Ice Fantasy. I'll have to think about that, but this is a great palette. One of my favorites from the brand is the Arcana palette. I love this. This is grungy and jewel tone and just beautiful. I love the greens here, these kind of warmer tones. This is a great, really brassy gold. This is just a beautiful palette. And my newest from Shroud is the Beaut Bean and Shroud collab. It's Freakin' Bats. This was actually ranked #1 for my palettes from 2020, and it made it into my top products of the year. I'm not gonna swatch it because I've swatched it in 2 videos already, but this is fantastic. I absolutely love everything about this palette. It is amazing. Next up, I have my melt palettes. So I have the Gemini, which is another one that made it into my top products of 2020. I reached for this quite a bit. Beautiful grungy greens, mustardy neutrals. This is just probably my all-time favorite palette in my collection. I love this. All right, another melt palette that I enjoy is the 420 palette. I really kind of stick to these 5 shades the most, and then I pull from this kind of cool neutral down here. I haven't really used many of the warm tones. I really don't like this gold shimmer. I wish it had been maybe a green shimmer or a taupe to kind of pull in these neutrals, but I do enjoy this palette. I know it didn't get great reviews, but I still enjoy it. All right, 2 of my other favorites. I have the Amor Eterno collection, so the Vita and the Muerte. I love both of these. I'm so glad I grabbed them. The Vita is beautiful. I'm excited to pull for this in the summer. These oranges, these cool tone neutrals, these kind of chartreusey colors. It's just beautiful. I really enjoy this. But my favorite of those 2 is definitely the Muerte palette. This is one of the most unique color stories I've seen. I love these really rich, deep reds. I pull for the teals a lot. I just love this palette. It's just so unique and special. For my Natasha Denona palettes, so I'll start with the minis. I have the mini nude. I really enjoy this. This is just a beautiful, simple, staple palette. I'm excited to take this traveling. I have kind of for my skin tone, the 2 neutral tones mattes I would need, and then a few options for shimmers. I also really enjoy the mini retro. This one was near the top of my rankings for 2020 palettes. Again, just very simple, but very pretty. I have the mini Lila. This one I've tried a few times. The shimmers are pretty. I just don't reach for it. If I'm going to go purple, I have other things I'm gonna reach for. I'm gonna pass this along to a friend. I have the mini Tropic. Now this one, again, if I'm going to reach for greens or blues, I have other things to reach for, but I do really like this kind of icy blue shade. Is really pretty, but I think I have similar things in my collection. So I'm torn on this one. I'm gonna put this one on my desk and see if I can get some use out of it, and if not, then I'll pass it along. Right, I also have the Mini Star. I really enjoy the shimmers in this palette, especially this one. The mattes are beautiful. This is a really nice little compact palette. And then for the bigger palettes, I have the kind of mid-size Sunrise palette. I love this palette. I especially enjoy the shimmers, but these are probably my favorite matte yellows in my collection. I love this shade Awakening, Azalea. This is such a nice kind of yellow shimmer, but these are just beautiful. I reach for this a lot if I'm doing kind of a sunrise look. I'll kind of melt the yellows into the orange, into the pretty kind of reddy purples, and it's just a beautiful palette. Right, I have the Natasha Denona Biba palette, so this is the all neutral palette. I really like this one. It's pretty true neutral. The shimmers are nice, but I mostly dip into this for the mattes. So you have some neutral, some warm, some cooler tones. It's just a really nice palette, kind of a nice everyday. I have the Safari. This I think was on way discount. This is an all matte palette. I really like the variety in here. I normally kind of don't reach for these kind of pinky red tones, but I like these. They blend nicely. These kind of orangey colors are beautiful. There's a row of cooler colors. I enjoy doing all matte looks, but I can also pop like a Super Shock shadow on top of a look if I want to add a shimmer, but this performs really well. And my most used Natasha palette is the gold palette. So I reach for this one really often. I wish there was like one slightly lighter matte, but I just say that because I am super pasty. But these shimmers, there's a couple kind of duochrome shimmers. This blue is beautiful. The golds are really nice. It's just a really nice, you know, everyday palette that can go really soft and it can go really glam. All right, next up are my palettes from Pat McGrath. So first up I have this Mothership Subliminal. This is a really nice kind of cooler tone neutral. There's only one matte, but the shimmers are actually really pretty. Kind of unique shades that I don't really have similar ones to in my collection. But if I'm going neutral, I'm gonna grab something different. I'm going to pass this one along. All right, I kind of pre-opened these just to make it a little easier. The packaging is so special on these. It's beautiful. This is probably my most used one. So this is the Divine Rose. And it's just beautiful. The special shades in here, I wore this shade at my friend's wedding as a bridesmaid. It's really sheer. Then there's this kind of duochrome peachy pink and yellow. This is just a beautiful, very special palette, and I love it. Next up, I have the Mothership 2 Sublime. And this is the one that has that green, kind of green to black shift. Usually the four on the end are kind of the special shades. The mattes work beautifully, the shimmers are nice, but these special shades just, I mean, can you see them? They're just beautiful, they're super reflective and they look super special on the eye. All right, the next one I have is the Mothership 6 Midnight Sun. And this one, I believe, has this beautiful purple in it. Yep, and then this special shade is stunning. I love this kind of reddish, orangey, neutral. The purple is beautiful. This is just a really nice palette, especially for those four. I don't honestly reach for these ones, but I do really enjoy the special shades in this palette. All right, I have, oh, I need to open this one. This is the Subliminal Original Mothership, the Mothership 1. And this one I think has a beautiful blue in it. And the special shades in this one are really pretty. Let's see if you can kind of see the reflect of those. Just super pretty. This one I really enjoy the mattes. They're just kind of nice staple cool tones. This is a really pretty kind of grayish with almost a little lavender, but just a beautiful palette. And the last Pat McGrath palette that I have is arguably the best of the Motherships. This is Mothership 5 Brown Seduction. It is just super beautiful. Probably the most wearable other than the Divine Rose. But I just love especially these 3 shades. I don't know if you can see how reflective they are, but I feel like you can just put them on top of any look and it just transforms it. It's just beautiful. The mattes are nice. The other shimmers, like this gold, this kind of taupey shade, the whole thing is just beautiful. I absolutely love this palette. So my last 2 brands are the ones that I have the most from. So I have my ABH palettes. Alright, so I have one of the small Norvina palettes. So I bought this one because of this green shade. You can see it. It arrived shattered and I ended up getting a full refund and got to keep the palette. I have used it a few times. It just keeps crumbling. I don't really use that center shade, but all of these colorful shades, I've created some really fun, unique looks that I've posted on my Instagram, but they just blend so nice into each other, and I'm really glad that I have this palette. All right, I have the classic Soft Glam palette. I mean, there's not much bad to say about this. It's just a typical kind of warm neutral palette. Performs beautifully. The shimmers in these palettes are just fantastic. It's a pretty nice black. It's just a great palette. All right, I have the Norvina. This is another one that's just very pretty. Some cooler tones. I love this matte Soul. The shimmers are beautiful. I know people call it a purple palette, but there's really only, what, 3 purples. I love the rose gold shade. I love these shimmers over here, and the mattes blend out perfectly. It's a great palette. All right, one of the more unique ABH palettes that I have is the Prism palette. So this is super fun. This shade kind of reminds me of the shade in the Huda Mercury Retrograde in the top row. This is a really fun neon. This is a beautiful shade. I love this Lucid shade. It's a nice inner corner highlight. Again, another nice black. It's just a beautiful palette. All right, I also have the Riviera palette. This is one that I found at TJ Maxx on major discount. And you can go neutral with this. I've created some really fun bright looks with this. I enjoy it. It performs just as well as any other ABH. I like the ratio of mattes to shimmers. There's actually 8 mattes and 6 shimmers, which I like. I like when there's more mattes. I do wish there was more variety in mattes, like maybe a deep teal or a deep navy, just to balance out some of the shimmer tones. But I like to kind of combine this pink shimmer with that yellow, and it creates a really cool orange shade. But this is actually a really nice palette. All right, here's one that was kind of, you know, didn't get a lot of love, but I really like it, the Carly Bible palette. I especially love the top row, some very pretty cool tones. This shimmer, Aura, is beautiful. The shade Moo is beautiful, and I really enjoy it. The Jackie Aina palette. This is just stunning and special. I love this duochrome sponsored shade. Zam is a beautiful gold shimmer. Lituation is kind of a nice cooler tone shimmer. The mattes are beautiful and unique. All right, one of my favorites that I know has some controversy around it, but I really enjoy the Subculture palette. I love going into the greens. I love using kind of this reddish color, the deep teals. This electric shade is really unique. Kind of has a green and peach and I don't even know what else. I've really enjoyed this palette, especially for the fall. It's great grungy tones. Alright, Sultry holds a special place in my heart. I actually wore this one for my wedding. I just kind of dipped into these kind of cooler neutrals and popped some shimmers on the lid. I really love this palette. I enjoy the cooler tones. There's some true neutrals. I don't see the point of the shade Bloom, but I just don't use it. But I love this palette. I have one of the big Norvina palettes. This is the volume 4. This is the only one that I've really felt tempted by, and I love it. I swatched it in my palette rankings of 2020. I swatched a few of the shimmers. This is beautiful. These are some of the only pinks that I like. I love the neutrals, I love the shimmers, and I even like the glitters. And last but certainly not least, My Colourpop palettes. I have a crap ton of Colourpop palettes. I really enjoy Colourpop. The formula is fantastic, but the price is right, so hence why there are so many. All right, I have two of the larger palettes. I have the Bare Necessities palette. This is just a staple neutral. The top row, there's some cooler tones, some true neutrals, these kind of mauve-y berry tones, some orangey warmer neutrals, and it goes really light, it goes really deep. All right, I also have the So Jaded palette. So this is one that just has a lot of variety. It's beautiful. I probably mostly dip into the blues and greens and kind of combine a couple of these shades. The Super Shock Diamond in here is really beautiful. Some mustardy tones, some red tones. This is just a great palette that has kind of everything you might need. I do have the She's a Rainbow bundle. So this came as singles, but in a bundle. This is really nice. I do have a lot of colorful palettes, but kind of a true rainbow. You have kind of your pastels, kind of your brights. I like the green glitter. I don't really like the other glitters. The shimmers in here are okay. I wish there were some brighter shimmers, but you know, kind of staples for a rainbow palette. Next up are my 15 pan palettes. I have the Hocus Pocus. This one I really liked. I enjoy the grungy tones. I love the greens. I love these kind of fuchsia purples, the reddish shades. Again, a nice glitter. When I usually don't like the glitters, I think it's just so finely milled that, you know, it goes on really nice and stays on nice, but this is beautiful. I have the Garden Variety palette. So this one, I actually kind of compare these with kind of, you have these rows are similar and then you have the greens, some of the kind of reddish shades, but this is like the brighter sister of the Hocus Pocus palette. And this one, I didn't really see the need for it, and then I saw it in store and thought it was really beautiful, so I picked it up and I really like it. I have two Disney palettes. I have the Misunderstood, the Disney Villains. I love this. I especially love the Dr. Facilier green. That's one of my favorite greens that I have. I love a lot of the other tones in here. This is a great matte to deepen things up. It's just a nice palette. All right, and then I have the Midnight Masquerade palette. So some really pretty tones. I don't like the glitters in these. They are super, super chunky. I like this green. Of course, I like the greens. There it is compared to the Dr. Facilier. It's a kind of a little mintier, a little brighter. I love this row of mattes. This is just beautiful. All right, next up are my 12 pans. I have the Whatever palette. This is one of my favorite Colourpop palettes. This is perfect for fall. I love this deep burgundy shade. The shimmers are really nice. I love the shade Tarte, the Super Shock in here. I hate the glitter in here, but this is just a perfect fall palette. I have the Sweet Talk palette. Now this one, when I first got it, I used it a lot. You can see there's a huge dip in this Super Shock. That's just one of my favorite Super Shocks. I do find that these tones, kind of the pinker tones in here, make me look like I have pink eye. So it's not something that I dip into too often unless I'm going pretty neutral. But I do still like it. All right, I have the You Are a Cutie palette. This was one of my lowest ranked palettes of 2020. I hate it. I like some of the cool tones over here, but I just feel like I can't get a full look. This is the only deep matte, and it's really pretty mid-tone. I do like the Super Shock, but not enough to keep it. I'm gonna pass this one along. All right, I have the Sailor Moon palette. It's really pretty. I do really like the shimmers. I like these kind of purpley shades, but I hate when Colourpop puts glitter in the matte shades. Like if these were just true mattes and there was maybe one or two deeper shades, it would be just perfect. I am gonna keep it because I do like the majority of the shades. And my very first Colourpop palette ever. It is a mess. This is the Yes Please palette. It looks beat up because it is. This is just a great warm tone palette. I think I put things in the wrong order. This shade is actually supposed to be there. This is the Butter Cake Just a beautiful kind of yellowy gold super shot. And last but not least, I have all of my 9 pans from Colourpop. So I'm gonna move these a little out of the way. All right, I have the Mandalorian. I love this. This is one of my most reached for currently. I typically go pretty neutral with this, but I love the green tones because I love greens. But these shimmers are fantastic. The mattes blend out beautifully. This is just all around a really nice palette. I have the Aura and Out palette. Now this one ranked a little lower for my 2020 palettes. It does have some really pretty shimmer shades. Let's see, that one's really kind of a topper. This shimmer is pretty. This chartreuse is really pretty. So there are some really pretty shades. I just feel like I can't quite get a complete look with this. I do have to pair it with other palettes, but there are some really unique shades, so I'm gonna hold on to this one. Another palette that ranked lower for me is the Baroque palette. Another one that I just don't like the looks that I've come up with it. Ugh. I mean, I like the tones. I don't really like these shimmers. They do kind of look like a bruise on me, but I do like having some grays. I love this really deep, rich, dark brown. I am going to hold on to it to see kind of what I could pair it with to make it work. All right, I have the Mint to Be palette. I really like this. I like the shimmers. I love this kind of olive tone. Another palette that, you know, if I make a full look out of it, it's going to look the same no matter how I do it. But I do pull for it when I need kind of a pastel green. One of my most used Colourpop palettes is the Going Coconut palette. I really enjoy this. I especially like this shimmer in the middle called Cocoa Crush. So it's just a beautiful shimmer. The mattes are really nice. It's just all around a really beautiful neutral palette. This is one that I'll probably take traveling once we're able to. I have the Orange You Glad palette. Now this has a glitter that I really don't like. I haven't even dipped into this one. This was one I got with there was a big Colourpop sale this last month. So I picked this one up because I really don't have a lot of orange tones. So I'm excited to dip into this and kind of see what I can create. Another palette that was in my top products of 2020, the Making Mauves palette. I love this. I love everything about it. I love the mattes. I love the shimmers. This is just stunning. All right, I have the Just My Luck, which is a green monochromatic palette. I really enjoy this one. I think this pairs nicely with the Mint to Be as, you know, some lighter shimmers to put with it, but I like these grungy tones. I love this middle shade. It's a great inner corner highlight for a green look, but I really enjoy this green palette. I have Blue Moon. So this one has some really pretty blue tones. I don't love the mattes in here. If I want matte blues, I'll probably grab the BH Blueberry Muffin, but I do really like Billie Jean and Lumi. These are two really pretty blues. That Lumi shade is just really pretty either all over the lid or as an inner corner highlight, but this is a really nice blue palette. All right, I have the Ooh La La palette. So this is pretty pink. I don't do a lot of pinks, but I do really like this bottom row. I love this Tickled Super Shock shadow. It's one of my favorites for a soft pink. So it is a really pretty palette. I just kind of don't really gravitate towards pinks. Another one of my favorite monochromatic ones, I really enjoy the Aha Honey palette. An awful, chunky, terrible glitter, but everything else is beautiful. You can't go very deep with this palette, but you know, if I want just kind of a bright yellow look, I will reach for this. The shimmers are really nice, the mattes are beautiful. All right, I have two purple palettes. I have the Lilac You A Lot palette. This is really pretty. I really enjoy these shimmers, kind of some cooler tones. It's just a really pretty purple palette. It pairs really well with It's My Pleasure. And I love this palette. So some of the prettiest purple tones. I love this deep shade. I love this Earth Shine shade. I don't know if this will do it justice, but it's just a really cool kind of multi-chrome shade. But I really enjoy this palette. Right, I have the Blow and Smoke palette. So I don't do a lot of just pure like black, gray, smoky eyes, but this pairs really nice with some others. This is a really nice silver. I mean, super pigmented. This is a really nice black. I have paired this with the Aura and Out to make kind of a chartreuse halo smoky eye with the black and the chartreuse from the Aura and Out palette, but it's a really nice staple palette. And my last palette just arrived today, so that's why it didn't make it into my rankings of my 2020 palettes, but I got the That's Taupe palette. I love cooler tones. I'm really excited to try this out. Looks like it's right up my alley. I enjoy neutrals, I enjoy cool tones, and the shimmers look really nice. All the reviews that came in were really good. Again, got it in the sale, so I'm excited to have this as part of my collection. All right, so it looks like I am decluttering 27 palettes. I don't know if you can get a good view of that, but I will be passing those along to a friend and possibly some family, but I'm getting rid of 27 eyeshadow palettes. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Comment below if there's a palette that you would have decluttered or one that I decluttered that you definitely wouldn't have.